I'm Roger Anionson here again with Michael Patterson, and we've been working on a project called Better Brains by Design for at least a year. And as things were developing, we wanted to get to a point where we can fully explain it, and we're there. We're ready right now, Michael, to get into some of the details and talk about some of the goals we've got. Often I'll say that we really don't think in our lifetime anyway there'll be a cure for Alzheimer's and dementia. And if there is, we always like to say, if there's, we'll take the pill.
We'll take it.
But the prevention is where we want to go with the Better Brains by Design. And how do you see the prevention as one of the goals that we've got? Prevention of cognitive decline, not necessarily the disease.
Well, I mean, you've alluded to it already. It's much easier to prevent some of this stuff from happening than it is to go and try to reverse damage that has already occurred. As you know, with Alzheimer's in particular, by the time you can diagnose Alzheimer's and by the time you're really beginning to see the symptoms, there's been such an accumulation of damage throughout the brain that it's really hard to get at, correcting that, particularly if there's real damage to the nerve cells. So it's much easier to back up and say, well, we know what the risk factors are, or we have a pretty good idea of what puts your brain at risk, what protects your brain. So it's much easier to take a step back and before you get into that, before you experience the damage, do what you can to prevent it.
And when we first started, there were statements like, it's inevitable. And I remember the phrase that caught my attention was, if you live long enough, you will get Alzheimer's. And that's all been put to the side as a myth, but there are an acceleration of risks that are associated with aging. So if the risks are there, and if someone were to say, it's inevitable that you'll suffer cognitive decline, I see the prevention as postpone the decline as long as you can, work hard to do that, and that work has to be incremental and it has to be regular and diligent, but it's not a massive effort, it's an effort over a lifetime.
Yeah, and one of the things that you're hearing more these days from the Alzheimer's field is we have to diagnose earlier, which is recognizing this idea that, the sooner you get at the problem, the better off you're going to be. But where they never go, sort of the next step is, well, once you've diagnosed it early, what do you do?
Yeah, it's the what do you do? And if there is a diagnosis that's 100%, I'll be surprised. It'll always be, we think that it might lead to a higher risk.
Yep.
And what we've seen in the last 24 months, or study after study showing that lifestyle behavior changes that are incremental and small, but targeted, strategic, laser focused, a little of this, a little of that, making the difference. Even if you don't have the high risk, it's a benefit to your health.
Yeah. The answer to what you do is what we're telling people to do in any case. Everybody should be exercising, doing mental stimulation, socialization. It's not, we ought to diagnose earlier so we can have a magic pill at an earlier point. We already sort of know what the magic pill is. It's this whole program of doing prevention to minimize the risk factors, maximize the protective factors. But it shouldn't just be for people who are diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. Everybody ought to be doing this because everybody wants their brain to be better, and that's how we design our brains to be better.
So prevent versus cure, it's not a pill you take, it's something you do.
Yeah, it's a behavioral, one of the revelations in terms of plasticity is that you go from molecular to systemic to behavioral, and you can go bottom up. What happens on the molecular level and the cellular level eventually percolates up and changes your behavior, but it works the other way down too, from top down. How you behave changes how your systems operate, change what your cells are doing and how your cells are operating, and we can control our behavior much more easily than we can control our...
It gets to be activity dependent everything.
Right.
All right. Thank you.